What if you could take a pill to mimic some of the effects of hypoxia or high altitude, such as enhanced erythropoiesis to improve oxygen carrying capacity of your blood and to potentially benefit muscle growth, cognition, and bone strength? I do not condone this, of course, but there is a medication called roxadustat, which is formerly known as FG4592. It's a medication which can do just that. Roxadustat is classified as a hypoxia-inducible factor prolyl hydroxylase inhibitor. This newer class of medication was developed to be a superior alternative to older erythropoiesis-stimulating agents for treating anemia in patients with chronic kidney disease. It was approved in China and Japan in 2018 and 2019 respectively. However, the FDA declined to approve it in America for this use. This was due to small concerns that it may increase the risk of blood clots. However, when you look at the actual clinical trials, you'll see that the risk is very small. HIF activation causes an increase in EPO production in the kidney, which signals your bone marrow to produce more red blood cells and hemoglobin. EPO is well proven to enhance endurance, but it requires injection. Roxadustat is taken orally and offers more benefits than just EPO. Notably, Lance Armstrong was famous for his EPO use. But what if you could boost red blood cell production without EPO? There's a completely natural peptide that does exactly that, by stimulating your bone marrow instead. Whether you're over 25, exposed to radiation, immunocompromised, or on medications like ones used to combat osteopenia, which also often cause suppression of the bone marrow, this is something you need to know about. Inside Peptide Mastery, I have an entire module dedicated to bone marlot, a natural peptide complex from the bone marrow which enhances red blood cell production, hemoglobin, and immune function all at once. I break it all down to cover every known peptide that makes up bone marlot, since as it turns out, they all have unique effects on the body. One specific peptide I cover in detail shows potentially more immune system improvement than even the thymus peptides. If you're dealing with autoimmunity or immunosuppression, this is the one you need to know about. We're working with a lab who is producing a novel synthesis of this exact peptide, which has already been studied. So if it's successful, you will have exclusive access to it through the course. Just check the link in the description to get Peptide Mastery if you're interested. Now, EPO is well proven to enhance endurance, but it requires injection. Roxadustat is taken orally and offers more benefits than just EPO, through its upstream hypoxia-inducible factor activation. Now, there are three isoforms of prolyl hydroxylase domain enzymes, PHD1, PHD2, and PHD3. While inhibiting each isoform contributes to hypoxia-inducible factor alpha stabilization and activation, PHD3 is primarily involved in regulating hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha activity. Roxadustat inhibits all three PHD isoforms, but has limited inhibition of PHD3. This is partly due to roxadustat's lack of effect on factor-inhibiting hypoxia-inducible factor, a separate asparaginal hydroxylase that regulates hypoxia-inducible factor transcriptional activity by modifying its interaction with coactivators. Consequently, roxadustat is biased towards hypoxia-inducible factor 2 alpha activation with a lesser degree of hypoxia-inducible factor 1 alpha activation. Now, under hypoxic conditions, HIF-1A is typically activated first, followed by HIF-2A if hypoxia persists. However, roxadustat's inhibition profile shifts this balance, favoring pathways regulated by HIF-2A, such as erythropoiesis, over those linked to HIF-1A. As a result, while roxadustat provides some of the benefits associated with hypoxia, it is not a true hypoxia mimetic. Despite this, roxadustat's downstream mechanisms from hypoxia-inducible factors still has potential to enhance endurance, enhance muscle growth, improve bone strength and fracture healing, as shown in a rodent model, enhance intervertebral disc oxygenation and regeneration, and additionally, EPO has been shown to improve depression through regulating VEGF. In a preclinical trial in rodents, roxadustat improved depression, neurogenesis, and cognition. To better understand some of roxadustat's unique potential cognitive benefits, it's essential to understand one of its off-target effects, its action as an agonist of thyroid hormone receptor beta, with minimal effects on thyroid hormone receptor alpha. At low doses, roxadustat primarily acts as a THRB agonist, which can have several effects such as an increase in bile acid production, a reduction in LDL cholesterol, improvements in NASH, and enhanced metabolic rate and lipolysis. It can also benefit ADHD, potentially, as mutations causing THRB resistance are linked to significantly higher ADHD scores. It also enhances remyelination through oligodendrocyte activation. Now, unlike T3, THRB agonism does not increase blood glucose levels, and its effects on THRA, which influence heart rate, are very minimal. which avoids typical hyperthyroid symptoms. However, if you do have any sort of thyroid issues already, I highly recommend that you avoid roxadustat just to be on the safe side. Now, how long do its effects on red blood cells last? Well, the red blood cell production by EPO also fine-tunes red blood cell destruction. EPO upregulated CD47 and SIRP-alpha, which reduced phagocytic activity, thereby extending red blood cell lifespan. However, this CD47 upregulation in red blood cells takes some time and it's not instant. The increase in EPO levels experienced through HIF activation at high altitudes lengthen the red blood cell lifespan in such a way that, upon returning to sea level, only the newest formed red blood cells, which were still lower in CD47, were selectively phagocytized, while the older red blood cell with more CD47 were spared. Also, increased oxygen exposure decreased CD47 and SIRP-alpha and increased phagocytic activity. This suggests that using roxadustat short-term would result in a quick return to baseline red blood cell. However, using it in the long term and then cycling off should allow for those red blood cells that were gained to survive for a longer period of time than average red blood cells. Hi, Brenden Henry here. If you're finding this video valuable, I highly recommend grabbing a copy of my book, Peptide Salvation. I have made absolutely sure that Peptide Salvation is the most helpful and accurate book on peptides ever written. I wrote it because over the past year, I've heard guys say, "Brenden, your peptide mastery course is too expensive, and I don't have $1,000. Well, consider this my gift to you and our gift to anyone who wants to learn about the life-changing magic of peptides. Because now you can get what is, in some ways, an upgraded version of my course, Peptide Mastery, at a fraction of the price. But that's not the only reason I wrote this book. I was looking for someone, anyone, who could share accurate, meaningful information about peptides, only to end up completely disappointed. I bought every single peptide book published on Amazon, only to find they were like primitive cave drawings, filled with incorrect science and dangerous misinformation. If you've seen our Science Check articles, you already know how other so-called experts stack up. But I have made absolutely sure Peptide Salvation is scientifically flawless, with more citations to real scientific research than any other peptide book ever published. Now, to be clear, if you want bonuses, advanced protocols, and lifetime free updates, Peptide Mastery is for you. But make no mistake, aside from this, Peptide Salvation is the single best peptide resource available, bar none. Just click the link in the description to get your copy now. Doses in clinical trials typically range from 25 to 100 milligrams, taken 2 to 3 times weekly. Regarding the safety of roxadustat, it's been tested in a couple clinical trials in which adverse events were found to be very minimal. It was also tested in rodents for a period of 24 months at therapeutic dosages, and it did not increase their mortality rate. In conclusion, roxadustat has an ability to mimic some effects of hypoxia, offering benefits for anemia management, especially in chronic kidney disease, physical performance, cognitive enhancement, and even bone health to a degree. Its safety profile, combined with its oral administration, make it a convenient alternative to EPO injections.